Everybody.
And about Devin White, how did he take the news that he wasn't going to be starting linebacker?
Yeah, all my conversations with players that I have in private, I keep private. I know you guys can respect that. But he's been a great teammate and done everything that's been required of him, and I've really got a lot of respect for him, and we're going to need him. We're going to need him this year. It's a long football season. Obviously Zach and Nakobe are our linebackers, but Devin's going to have to contribute this year if we want to go where we want to go, and that goes for all the guys that are one snap away from going in.
Hey, Nick, you talked about the extra time you had to maybe now, instead of being in offensive meetings so much, to look at 2-minute offense, 4-minute, all that kind of stuff. What about the schedule? You had, week 1, you got the weird schedule. Week 2, it's like a mini bye. Week 3, you got a short week. Have you delved into that?
Yeah, we've been doing that for, being involved with Frank with the schedules there in Indy. I've been doing that stuff for the last 6.5 years, right? Just being able to every schedule, there's so many different scenarios that you have to play. So what do you do on a Monday night game? What's the schedule? And then after the end of that, you debrief and you say, what could we have done better? What did you guys really like? And you talk that over with your coaches and staff meetings. You talk that over with your leadership council, and you have individual conversations with players as well. And so, after every one of these unique schedules, we talk about it, right? And that's been going on here for the last 4 years. And so we feel like, is our schedule and our process perfect? No, your process is never perfect. You're constantly trying to get it better and get better. Every year calls for a little bit different thing. And so after all these things, we played a lot of fortunately, we've played a lot of Monday night football games here. And so we've had a lot of discussions like this to help make sure that we're putting ourselves in the best positions to win. And then you do that with a short week, and then you do that with a Thursday night game, and you do that with Christmas. All the things that require, now Brazil was new. We didn't have a real good plan for that, but it worked out. But you try to do that with everything, and that's constantly on our mind. If we want, our message this week has been detail. We're talking about details, right? And that's our details into how we play this game of football, like our fundamentals. And if we want our players to be detailed in everything that they do, we sure as hell better be detailed in everything that we do.
Nick, when's the reason for changing the time that you guys practice this year?
This year?
Yeah.
Yeah, just again going through our process the last couple of years, how we think, just because things have went well. One of the worst things I hate about, if a coach says this, well, we've always done it that way. Stupid. No. How are you trying to get better? We feel like this portion of this is helping us get better with not only the way we practice, but the way we meet and the way we walk through. And so, we talked about it, and this is where we felt we were to say, and I'm just going to keep the whys in, but we're not ever afraid to change, different things, whether it's schedules, whether it's scheme. Now, core values that you see every day, those are set in stone. That's what we're gonna, through hard times, through good times, we're gonna keep going back to those. But schedules can constantly change, schemes can constantly change, in the attempts to just keep getting better.
Nick, when you evaluate week 1 at certain positions and certain players, how much do you have to factor in the field conditions?
Good question. Obviously, both teams played on the same field. So, it wasn't, I don't want to say too much what I felt of the field or anything like that. That's not really relevant. I know what you're trying to do. You're trying to get me to say a little bit about
your evaluation of players.
Well, sometimes there's games, I'll say it this way, and it's not this extreme, but I remember when we first got to Indy had played a game at Buffalo, and there was 4 feet of snow on there. It was insane. In 2017, I think, whatever the score was, but we were watching that game. We're like, well, maybe we should watch another game to evaluate the players. Maybe take this one out. I see a picture of I always watch that one of Shady, the game that he had here against Detroit. What an some unbelievable runs that he had in that snow-covered field. So you might, again, we are not in the business of blaming anything, or we are accountability, right? That's the only way you get better. So, let's talk about missed tackles. Did some of the missed tackles happen? Did some of them happen because a guy slipped? Yeah, the result of the guy slipping, that happened, but there's also a way that you approach the running back. That's what needs to be fixed, not you can't do anything about the field. And it's the same thing like as a wide receiver. When a wide receiver slips in a break, well, that the field is a little bit sloppy, so you have to play with better fundamentals to go through that way. So, yeah, you still can evaluate it. And I gave you two sides. Like I gave you one where we didn't do it at all. I gave you one where Shady was making all these unbelievable plays. But we will have to evaluate the approach to it, the approach to the ball carrier. That's why we might have missed it. So missed the tackle or slipped in a route or whatever it might be. So we still use that. Like we're evaluating hard off that tape. And great example for us that, there are going to be adversities this year that we have zero control over. So put it out of your mind and focus on what you got to do, control the controllables, and let's go to work.
Nick, what was your approach with the guys since you got back from Brazil on Saturday up until today, as far as getting them in here or giving them rest time to make sure they're all recovered from a grueling weekend?
Yeah, when you, one of those weekends, the last weekend prior to game starting, right, most of the NFL has off Saturday or Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Obviously, we didn't. So they needed some time off, that's for sure, especially with the travel. Coaches needed some time off. Like, when you got off the plane on Saturday, it was, we were all tired, right? Some guys slept great. Some guys didn't sleep. Some guys watched the game, whatever it was. So everybody had to kind of adjust. So getting them that time off was important. And then getting them back when they came back to work, getting them, lifting and hanging out together and some meetings, that was important. And now today, but I think sometimes you don't want to go too far ahead either on a team. You want to stay in the coaches can. You want the players to be fresh, and that's just our philosophy. And so, now we're starting here today as a normal. You can come in, Trot. All right, now you can start here today. We end up starting here today as a normal Wednesday, even though it's a Thursday. My mind thinks in all those, like, today's Wednesday. The rest of the world, that's how football coaches and football players think. Today's Wednesday. No, it's Thursday. You can argue to the death with a football coach. He'll tell you today's Wednesday, no matter what.
Nick, there's been conversation about Kirk Cousins coming off the Achilles injury, maybe not having full mobility yet. What's the tape showing you, and what are you expecting? That,
Kirk has been an unbelievable football player in this league for a long time. A lot of respect for him. He's a great football player. And so we're going to have to be ready. Again, not something you can control. That, if he was feeling good one day and not feeling good the other day, we have to be ready for, the player that we know he is. And because he's a heck of a player, and we got to be ready for him because he can make teams look bad because of his talent.
Nick, I know you take things week by week, day by day, but Monday.
But I want to take you to another place besides where you're thinking.
Looking at the totality of the schedule, Monday is only one of two games you guys have at the link through October. You're really not there much until the latter half of the season. I'm just curious, what do you make of that?
Obviously, we love playing in front of our fans. That's something you can't control. So I don't try to think too much of it. I do think that when you look at the positives, you think about the positives like, oh my gosh, we get to play a home Monday night game in Philadelphia as our first true home game. That's pretty awesome, right? Monday Night Football. Monday night was the night when I was 13 or younger, was the one night I was able to stay up past my bedtime. It was like, hey, Dad would be like, hey, okay, you can watch the first half. Get a little bit older, I can watch into the third quarter. Get a little bit older, I can watch into the fourth quarter. being in high school, I can, and a little bit sometimes in middle school, I can watch the whole game. And what an unbelievable experience to have with your dad to be able to watch Monday Night Football with him. It's kind of cool that you get to play in front of that, knowing that there's other kids around the country that love this game of football that are going to be able to do that same thing as well. So looking at again, I showed a schedule today of what the schedule is, and I blurred it out because nothing else matters. Who we played last week doesn't matter. Who we play next week doesn't matter. Who we play in November doesn't matter. All that matters is our preparation for today for the Atlanta Falcons. So good question. I respect your question, but we are truly focused on it and excited about the opportunity that we have this week.
With the Rams, Raheem Morris adopted some of Vic's tactics, presumably because Sean McVay wanted it and Staley had ran it beforehand. I know it's not a lot of film preseason, just one game, but is that still the same defense that he's running?
You know, again, like you said, Jeff, there's not a lot to study. You look at their preseason and they were in one personnel the whole time. Then you look at their last week's game. I'm speaking offensively even. You look at their last week's game, then they were in a completely different personnel. You guys can do the numbers on that. So, again, we know there's a lot of unknowns. It's almost still like your first game of the year where there's going to be a lot of unknowns because the way they play the Steelers isn't necessarily going to be the way they play the Eagles. But, yeah, you see similarities of some of the Rams stuff that they were doing and, from last year. And then I just know that a lot of respect for Coach Morris, a really good coach, who's done a really good job in this league as a defensive coordinator for a long time, and so I know we'll have to be ready to go.
Speaking of that, from your perspective, obviously the tape's out now, like what you guys do on offense.
Same kind of deal though, Martin. Like it's like we didn't show everything either. There's a lot of unknowns that they have to be ready for.
I was going to ask, so what's the process, or how is the process different now? With you and Kellen kind of working on how to make those adjustments and what to show for next week and going forward.
Yeah, everything's discussed. Everything's discussed within the offensive group of how we're going about like attacking a defense, how we're going about marrying things together. Obviously, Kellen's in charge of that, and leading the way through that, and we're discussing through it. When I can be in there, I'm in there discussing it. Kevin's in there. Kevin Patullo's in there the whole time. Jason Michael, Stout, right? And so it's just, very similar process. I think you look around the league, a lot of people have similar processes of the way they game plan, different things like that. But yeah, it's been it's obviously longer week this week to get ready and to go through those things. But yesterday sometimes it's fun locking yourself in that room and studying the opposing team and going through it that way.
Nick, you described last year about Bijan Robinson.
Mm-hmm.
How well did you get to know him in the draft process, and what challenges he present on Monday?
Yeah, we showed some tape of him today of just how elusive he is. I think if you look at his first touchdown was like play 11 against Carolina last year, play 11 of game number 1, and they throw him a little swing pass and he makes the first guy miss, and then he makes another guy miss, and he runs through a tackle. He's a really good football player who he can create on his own. Like things could break down and he still can make a play. A lot of things reminds me of when we used to. It felt like today in the team meeting when I'm showing those, it felt a little bit like, hey, these are the clips I remember showing when we were getting ready to play the Giants and Saquon. He's really elusive and really fast, got good hands, and so yeah, enjoyed my pre-draft process with him. I always enjoy meeting good guys, good football players, and spending time with him. And he's a heck of a football player that's done a nice job so far in this league. We'll have to be ready to tackle. We need to tackle better than we did last game, and it's going to be a big deal this week's game, as every game is.
Nick, you described.
You might have previously been interested in an offensive game plan meeting immediately coming off the game. As you came back from Brazil, what did you find yourself freed up to immediately go into?
Again, it's a longer week, so you have more time to do some different things. But, I guess immediately the first thing is watch all the tape, right? Watch offense, defense, special teams, which is no different. But then, I think my mindset goes first of the very first thing I think of instead of, I guess what I would used to do is I used to get in here early before we even watch the tape and watch a couple segments of the next opponent's defense. right? Whether that was, it doesn't matter what time it was, but that was my first thing. Hey, before I even go to watch the tape, I usually watch the tape at night of the game, but before I even go to watch the game with the staffs, I would have put the game plan, or put the tape on of the opposing team. I think what the first thing I did, or I know the first thing I did was what should the message be this week? What should the culture be about this week? And the culture is the same. We have core values that we believe in, but what truly needs to be dove into this week? And what are some things that I can, what are stories I could tell? What are videos I could show? What are points that I can make within the tape of who we're playing? And I think that's where my week started this last week, as opposed to in the film room watching 12 personnel against the opposing team. And so, yeah, that does, still be able to get to that, but that's where my first thought was as we started this week. That's a good question.
Nick,
Two more, please.
Nick, you described. Want to see big improvements from week 1 to week 2. With that in mind, what's the key to making sure that happens this week with your group, and what are some of the big improvements you need to see?
Yeah, every week you want to get better every week. That's on the forefront of our mind every single time we step on the practice field, every single time we step in the game to game. I've heard that before, that people make the biggest adjustment from week 1 to week 2 as far as their improvements. We just want to continue. That's hard to say, and that's hard to gauge to say, week 2, you get better. Like, you don't know. Our goal is just to continue to rise, right? To continue to rise. And we know we didn't do a good enough job of that last year, I think. But we're on to 2024. But the thing that, we can't be in the negative of the turnover. We're the only team in the NFL this week that lost the turnover battle and won the game. 10-1. We're 1-10, however you want to look at it. Like, we're the only team that won. That's not sustainable, right? That's not sustainable. So, protecting the football, taking the football away, the details, right? The details. We missed too many tackles. You guys heard me say that. We talked about it with the team. We reinforced it today. We'll be doing drills out there when you guys are out there to get ready to tackle better. And so, really, the biggest emphasis is the details. Like, you want to be the best in the world at something. It's about doing the basics better. It doesn't have to be real fancy. Who tackles better? Who gets off blocks better? Who blocks better? Who takes care of the football better? Who catches the ball better with their fundamentals? Like, that's football, and that's football. When I was growing up at Southwestern High School, that's football wherever, in college. At Washington and Jefferson College, where my brother's a coach, and that's football in the NFL.
Nick, you described Cousins as being a great quarterback. What in your mind puts him at that level?
Yeah, he is a he's a really accurate player, and he makes really good decisions with the football, and that, I think, that consistency that he has there is really. It's been noticed because he's done it for such a long time, and he had his team in the playoffs 2 years ago. He's had some good teams, and so again, just really think his accuracy, his decision making. He's able to get the ball where it needs to go consistently. So again, just got a lot of respect for him, and I think his track record speaks for itself.
All right, thanks, folks.
You up next, Zach?
No, we got special teams in 15.